From the Fathead Studio in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Man, am I still pretty? And he's like, you ain't pretty, but you're going to be all right.
And now I'm just hanging on, looking at the wall, like flying this way. And I'm like, oh man, I got to let go of this thing at some point.
And then there's one that could literally pick you up.
Yeah.
It's
I'm not really sure about that, but yeah.
That's called a helicopter.
Well,
And the last lap was just chaos. I mean, like 4 wide, 5 wide.
It's like whatever, if you land it and send it into the fence, you're probably not gonna get hurt. Bounce, and then this insane roll, the car that Keegan was in. I mean, I don't know, it's the shape of the Beetle or what, but that thing sent it.
So I was the supercharger specialist on my old man's car with
Specialist?
Yeah, it sounds cooler than crew guy.
Hi, I'm Tony Stewart.
I'm Mario Andretti.
I'm Christy Lee.
I'm Alexander Rossi.
I'm Cruz Pedregon.
I'm Hayden Gillim, and this is The Skinny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Skinny. We're excited to bring on another super guest here, courtesy of the Vance and Hines racing team, part of the Moto America's King of the Baggers series that he competes in. I'm Ken Stout. That is Rico Elmore. The track dude, Michael Young, is running the controls as always. And we welcome Hayden Gillim to the show. At age 19, AMA 600 Supersport National Champ on a Suzuki. So accomplished racer on both the dirt and asphalt. And we had a chance to speak with your teammate there, James Rispoli. And man, he was talking a lot of dirt about you, dude. He was throwing it out.
and that's a lie. He wouldn't give us any, which was completely wrong.
You're supposed to work with me here, Rico, and try to get something, man. We did. We said, come on, give us some dirt on him. He said, no, man, I don't kiss and tell.
Perfect. Good deal. That's a teammate there.
Great to have you on the show, man. Very accomplished. And I was speaking with Ben Fox, who I believe you're also friends with, and I know he had worked with James for a couple of years in the UK, and just, again, looking for a little bit of information on you guys. And I said to him, I didn't realize how much the flat track guys crossed over to asphalt and how good they were. And he said, absolutely. He said, if they're good on the dirt, they're good on the asphalt. He said, I don't know about going the other way, but from dirt to asphalt works really well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It seems like there's a bunch of us that have come from flat track or been road racing and then gone to flat track. So, yeah, I've known James for a long, long time. We've been around each other since we were little. So, He's a couple years older than me, so he was sometimes just a couple, like a class above or something, or he was a little bit more of a veteran where I was coming in as a rookie or something. And but yeah, we've had our share of rubber rubbing and hitting there, hitting here, bumping, bruising. Yeah, it's been a long road for us.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, listen, the racing is hard. That's what you guys do, and you're also talented. And man, when you look at the videos, I mean, literally running over each other's feet from time to time because you're literally within fractions of an inch from somebody. If they put their foot down for a little bit of counterweight or balance, I mean, the tire's right there on their feet. I mean, so what you guys do and how you do it, you can certainly see where tempers can flare. And sometimes you can build that animosity towards a guy if you feel like he's done something purposely. But when you race really hard like that, more times than not, you develop more of a respect. So if you end up with that person as a teammate, you probably look at him and think, I know we're going to have to battle, but at least we're on the same side now.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that was the biggest thing at Daytona. I hadn't got to ride the bike yet. Last time I rode the bike was in 21, and the bikes have changed so much the last year and a half. Going into Daytona, I didn't know much about the bike. He was having to tell me so much different stuff. That guys were teaching me things, showing me all the new stuff on the bikes, and it was really nice. He surprised the heck out of me. He was a great teammate. He was helping me a ton, and then for us to go first race get 1-2, and then second race go 2-3, it was awesome for us and the whole Vance and Hines team.
So nothing like getting thrown into the fire at a $170 plus, and haven't rode this thing, and this is new.
We didn't call you because we wanted to train you. Here we go.
Yeah. So, what did he tell you? Like, show you where the cruise control button was and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he showed me where you know where all the big pockets are, where the latch is for the bags, and you know, all that stuff.
Where the beer holder
Where the
is.
cup holder is. Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
put ice in here with your beer and so forth.
So he did bring something up, though. I'm curious. I'd like to get your opinion on it. He said that you guys had gone from a street glide to a road glide, and Rico, you brought this up in that show there with James. And I guess with the street glide, the fairing actually moves with the steering wheel versus the road glide. Now it's a fixed piece, so it doesn't move. Is that what you remember? I mean, was that a big part of the bike being better?
Yeah, the biggest thing was the street glide. The front fairing was massive. It was huge, and the road glide's quite a bit smaller, more compact. I remember the street glide. That thing just punched a massive hole in the air, where the road glide, it still punches a hole, but it's not anything like what it used to be. And I mean, really, that was a big difference, just going from that bike to this bike. But the biggest difference for me, whenever I rode the thing, we still had the foot pegs up in front of me. So like the bike I was riding was pretty close to a bagger, to like an actual street version of the bagger. Now they're full on race bikes. They have.
He said that you had floorboards, still had floorboards, that you had the heel shifter on the one that you originally. Yeah, that'd be quite the tricky gig there.
Yeah. I remember the last race we were having, I can't remember, we were having some issues getting some shifts done, and they threw a little hill shifter on the thing, and it made it easier to shift. I could actually get some leverage and actually get pushed down on it to get some upshifts. But it was that bike. The bikes have come a long ways, that's for sure. I decided not to do it last year because the way it was looking, I didn't know how much testing we were going to get to do with the bikes, and the way it was working out, I wasn't going to be able to do it confidently, because in 2021, the first race weekend of the year, I rode one session, and that was the race. We had just a bunch of bike issues and everything. And then we went to Road America, and all of a sudden the bike wouldn't run at one point, and the bikes worked good, but then the series, the class, or the speed of the class had just gone from here to here to here to here. And I wasn't prepared to just throw my body and the bike and everything just all around the place just to, go get fifth or something, without having the time to test the bike, make the bike better. And so after seeing what they did last year, I was pretty pumped, and I was upset that I didn't join them for last year. But now I'm back on the bike, and obviously, we've got a really good package underneath of us going to Daytona and doing what we did down there.
Great stuff. We have Hayden Gillim with us here this week on The Skinny. Stay with us. When we come back, he got started at a mighty young age.
They already had the numbers on there. My older brother had 22, I had 69, and my little brother had 95. For Tommy being the oldest, Nikki being the middle, and Roger being the youngest. So we didn't get pushed that direction, but we definitely were urged to go that way.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. Innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to The Skinny. We have Hayden Gillim on the show with us this week, one of the Vance and Hines riders with the Moto America's King of the Baggers, Vance and Hines, I should say. Great to have him with us for sure. As I teased going to the break, he started at a mighty young age, I said. He was 6 years old on his first motorcycle and went on to win his first championship that year. So you started winning right out the bat. I mean, does it get any better than that?
It's such a long time ago. I hardly remember it. I remember getting my first bike, a little XR50, on Christmas Day. Me and my older brother got a XR70. My little brother got a brand new PW, and we went out in the snow and man, we busted our butt. We just ride back and forth, busted our butts, and then from there, I don't remember winning a whole lot at the beginning. I remember hitting a lot of walls, hitting a lot of hay bales. I remember running into everything more so than going across the finish line. But yeah, it was man, it's been a heck of a ride, and I remember those first few years was fun, just trying to learn all the different bikes, and because as a kid like that, we were bouncing around bike to bike to bike to bike, and it was it was a lot. But as a kid, you don't think about that stuff. You're just riding motorcycles and having fun.
Is that something that your family, I think I know the answer, something your family has done a lot of over the years, correct?
Yes, yeah. So that Christmas Day, my grandpa Marty Hayden and my uncle Earl Hayden, they brought the bikes in, and they already had the numbers on there. My older brother had 22, I had 69, and my little brother had 95. For Tommy being the oldest, Nikki being the middle, and Roger being the youngest. So we didn't get pushed that direction, but we definitely were urged to go that way. So it was it was cool to be a part of it.
So I think we've got to make the connection here now. There's no way around it for the fans that are listening in. So the Haydens are your cousins. So I'm guessing that's on your mother's side. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, my mom.
Your mother's a Hayden? Yeah. Yeah. So, and for those of you that maybe aren't up to speed on it, and I had to do a little bit of homework too, but Nicky Hayden, of course, is the most famous name that I know of. I think we're all pretty familiar with his accomplishments. Of course, a former champion, and we lost him way too soon. Unfortunately, an accident, a bicycling accident, not a motorcycle racing accident. But reading about his family and his brothers with Tommy and Roger, and then even his mother and father, all dirt track racers. And I said to Rico, I said, can you imagine what Thanksgiving Day is like for these guys, for the Gillims and the Haydens all come together, and all of them are riding motorcycles? And I can only imagine what Thanksgiving Day is like.
Yeah, it was always cool. So there was a pretty big age gap between us. My mom was older than they are, and then they were kind of, I'm not sure exactly the age gap, but we're like 10 years behind. So they were full pro and everything whenever we were starting, and they were already making big names for themselves. And they were on the road a lot as we were kids, and we would ride with them every now and then, during the winter, whenever we were young, they'd come out and ride. We always rented a track down in Greenville, Kentucky, about 45 minutes away, that a bunch of us amateurs would come ride at. We'd have a bunch of kids come stay at our house, friends and family and stuff. And Nikki and Roger and Tommy and then would come make appearances and come down there and ride. And I remember we were always super excited of whenever they would come down, because just seeing how those guys ride bikes is versus what we were used to is just insane. And but as we got older, we had those guys as training partners more. We were always Roger was still full in the sport whenever we were really coming into our own as pros, and so we always had him as a bicycling partner, riding partner, everything. And then Tommy and Nikki would show up every now and then and come kick our butts. And I remember one time I remember we were out road biking, and we were all cruising along, and all of a sudden Nikki pops out of the woods on his mountain bike and goes straight to the front of the group and is just pulling us all along. I'm on my road bike huffing and puffing in the back. I'm sitting back there. I don't remember who I was talking to. I'm like, are you serious? He's up there in a full knobby, full frame bike, and oh yeah. And he's just chilling. He's just talking, just hanging out, talking to everybody. And then all of a sudden he's like, all right, well, I'll see y'all later. And then he just turns off and goes right back in. Dry bags and everything. And I had a full rubber jacket that water couldn't penetrate, but it hit my pants and then soaked into my shirt. And then I was wet up to my chest.
Want to get the skinny on other guests and different types of motorsports? Check out our YouTube page and get the skinny.
Welcome back to the Fatheads Eyewear Studios here in Speedway, Indiana. We have Hayden Gillim on the show with us. He is one half of the Vance and Hines team that competes on the Moto America's King of the Baggers series. Extremely talented rider, but I'm going to get a little bit off track here when it comes to racing because he did something that certainly caught my eye as I was doing some homework on him. You decided that you were going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Talk to me about that one. How does that come about? Is that a dream that you just had? Were you watching it on TV one day? I mean,
lose a bet drinking.
Yeah, lose a bet drinking. I mean, how's that come about, man?
Yeah, it was. I don't remember exactly how everything transpired, but I just got done in 2018 running the full Super Sport series, and at the time I had a really good, I've still got my really good buddy Nick Wogan is a videographer and everything in the sport, and he does a bunch of stuff, and he has done some mission work over in Africa and South America and stuff like that. So he was wanting to go over to Africa and do a little mission trip and try to help some kids over there, and then while he was over there, he had some friends or knew some people that were going to go hike Kilimanjaro, and he called me up in November, and he called me up like 2 days after Thanksgiving, and the trip, he was leaving like January 2nd, and he's like, hey, you want to come over to Africa with me, and we'll go hike Kilimanjaro and do some mission work and everything. I was like, okay, tell me what I need to do. And so we booked flights. We made all the arrangements and everything. It was oh man, it was so cool. I want to go back. I've talked to my wife and some other friends about going back. I've talked to Nick himself and his family about going back over there to do some stuff. And man, it's such an eye-opening experience going over there and coming back to America after that. It was cool because it changed my whole perspective on life and the world and all that, and got me to realize that I've got a pretty dang good life.
Day one into it, did you think, man, maybe this wasn't the best idea?
No, man, it was
of the mountain.
No, the mountain. The first day was so easy. We were still pretty low in altitude, and we hiked up for 6 days. So we took our time going up. You know, the average age of our group that I was with was probably in the 50s. And that's with me included. That's with my buddy Nick included. Like, we were the two youngest guys, and there was a 65-year-old, I think a couple people that were pushing 60. And so, you know, I was just hanging out. I was cruising. Me and him are in pretty good shape, and we're just, you know, we're hiking slow, like 2 miles an hour, if that. And so we're going up and up and up every day, stopping, sleeping, and it's a standalone mountain, so it's just out there by itself. There's nothing blocking the view for miles, for hundreds of thousands of miles, and so we're hiking up. The worst thing was 2 days. It rained for 2 days while we were on the mountain, and it was some hard rain. One day we got up so high while it was raining that it turned to snow and sleet and ice, and everybody was just soaked. And we had dry bags and everything, and I had a full rubber jacket that water couldn't penetrate, but it hit my pants and then soaked into my shirt, and then I was wet up to my chest up here just because it had soaked in
and wicked all the way up.
Yeah, and it had soaked. It went down my back and then soaked into my backpack through the back, and then soaked everything in my bag. And so we were all pretty miserable for a couple of days just because everything was wet and we couldn't get dry. But man, the day that we made the peak, it was unreal. I'll never forget that moment. It was you know, your head's throbbing, you feel like you're drunk, and you know, we were at 19,500 something feet, I think, and it's a different world up there. Things were a lot different, and your perspective changes whenever you've seen all that. And like I was tearing up there. I wanted to I was upset because I didn't get to share this experience with my mom, my dad, my girlfriend at the time, all my family and friends back home. And it was such a cool experience. And I'm trying to go back. It's something I definitely want to go back and do again. It was so amazing. That's for sure.
We'll leave this conversation on that high. When we come back, we'll ask him a little bit more about that climb to Mount Kilimanjaro.
It was steep, and I remember being hunched over, looking at the ground, and all of a sudden, if you looked up and did anything like this, you would start to fall backwards.
Welcome back to the Fatheads Eyewear Studios here in Speedway, Indiana. We have Hayden Gillim on the show, part of the Vance and Hines bagger team, and was just chatting with him about an incredible trip that he had the pleasure of going on, his climb to Mount Kilimanjaro. It's an 8-day climb, but he was talking about his time in Africa as well, and meeting the people that were there and the way that they lived, and how it changed your perspective on life. You also mentioned about being at the peak at 19,000 feet. I can't imagine. I said this a couple times on the show. I had the pleasure of covering Pikes Peak in my career a number of years ago, and the elevation there on top of the mountain is 14,000 feet. I was a pit reporter for the event that particular year, and much like you said, I had a raging headache all day long. The best way to describe it is having a full-on hangover, but you don't get the pleasure of drinking.
Oxygen deprivation.
Yeah, no question about it. So that's 14,000 feet, much less another 5,000 feet higher. You talked about that. But what were the challenges, as you were climbing there for the last couple of days? If you were young and strong, I can only imagine some of the older guys were really struggling.
The biggest challenge is, is just making sure you drink enough, because our bodies couldn't get the oxygen through our airways once we got up to the higher altitude. So the only other way to get oxygen was by drinking a bunch of water, getting the oxygen out of the water. And so we were always constantly drinking. The company that we went with is it's called Crew Treks, and that company did a tremendous job keeping everybody safe and healthy and on track. And we were by far the slowest group on the mountain that week, just because we did have some older people. But the crew did a great job keeping us on track, on schedule, and keeping us healthy. They fed us really good. And the oxygen part, I didn't notice it until the very last day. I had a little bit of a headache the day before, but the last day, the day that we peaked, we took off from 15,000 feet and then hiked to the peak, and it took us 9 hours. We left at midnight, and whenever we hit about 17,000 feet, I remember it was steep, and I remember being hunched over, looking at the ground, and all of a sudden, if you looked up and did anything like this, you would start to fall backwards. All of a sudden, and then I noticed if I started trying to look around or do anything besides just watch where my feet were going, I was starting to sway and run off the path a little bit, and then I was like, okay, we gotta just keep your head down, go. And I was walking behind this guy Richard. He was 65, and at a couple of points he was starting to struggle a little bit. I just put my hand up there and I just keep walking and push his back. And I'm like, nope, you're going to get up there, buddy. We're doing this. And
wow.
So yeah, it was, we had one person that had to get carried back down. He had a really bad oxygen sickness or altitude sickness. And, his face swelled up it got pretty rough looking, and they ended up having to carry him back down pretty quickly. And but he was a younger guy, and he was trying to be super strong and go quick, and you could tell that's what ended up getting him, was just he didn't prepare himself enough, he didn't drink enough, he didn't pace himself like he should have. And it was eye-opening just on that side. It's crazy how quickly your body can shut down whenever it's not ready to do something it's not quite prepared for. It's that was a little scary to see, but getting up there and seeing the view and seeing everything that we got to see, it was unreal.
All right, guys. When we come back, we'll flip things around here and talk about some racing once again. Stay with us. We have Hayden Gillim on the show.
Oh yeah, those things. I mean, they're 630-pound motorcycles. They whenever they break loose, and they don't want to come back very easy.
The Skinny is brought to you by American Coach. American Coach, innovation is our life force. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to The Skinny. I'm Ken Stout. That is Rico Elmore and the track dude back there running the controls. What do you got, Michael? Any questions for this talented rider?
When was the first time that you hopped on a bike and said to yourself, this is really insane, but I love it?
Phew. I don't know. It would have to be whenever. Actually, you know what? I would say probably whenever I hopped on the bagger the first time. Really, up to that point, I thought motorcycles were motorcycles. I started whenever I was 6, so I was used to it. But whenever I rode the bagger the first time, I'd kind of moved away a little bit from racing. I had some stuff go down, and I got away from it for a little bit. And I rode the bagger for the first time at National Corvette Museum track in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And it's a pretty tight technical track. And I hopped on the bagger for the first time there, and I was dragging everything and going so slow around the track. And I was like, this is stupid. I don't know why I'm doing this. Y'all are going to race these bikes? And I was like, but, it's a Harley, it's a bagger. I'll go race it. It'll be cool. So really, I think I would say probably the first and only time would probably be the bagger. Now the bikes are so much better. If I hopped on it now, it wouldn't be so bad. But that first bike, that first version was, it was rough.
You didn't think you were going to be the test dummy on that, huh?
I didn't want to be. That's for sure. But it was my first time working with the Vance and Hines guys, and Vance and Hines is such a big company, and they're such a big part of motorcycle racing. I really couldn't turn it down, and they were supported by Harley and everything. They were the factory Harley team at that point. And I was like, I gotta go with this. I don't care what it takes. I'll ride whatever bike they give me. I'll just as long as it gets me on a motorcycle, I don't care.
Anyhow, I caught part of it, and I was like, these guys, I mean, you got to watch it. Whoever's at home watching this right now, you got to watch it, or listening to this on a podcast. You got to watch it, because it is some of the most unbelievable racing that I've watched in a long time. And I mean, okay, you're on a bagger. You know what you think of a bagger? It's usually somebody about my size that's running bar to bar and doing their thing. Well, they're doing a little bit more than that on these. So
yeah, we loved James. James had a quote from you. He said, which was, "Embrace the wiggle." So,
oh yeah.
And of course, we started talking about him coming out of the bus stop, going into NASCAR 3, and he went into that tank slapper, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, dude! I mean, how does anybody hang on to that?"
Oh yeah, I got a front row seat to that one too, and I saw.
Were you thinking he was going to eat it?
At first, I've seen it. We've seen it happen so many times over the years. I thought, it would come back pretty quick, and I'd be able to get up in his draft, and we'd take off, and it just kept going and going and going. And I slowly just veered left, and I got away from him. And I was like, "All right, buddy, just hold on to it, and I'll see you later."
Yeah. See you around.
And then next lap, or whenever we got down to the front straight, he came by me. I was like, "Okay, you made it. Good deal. Let's go."
Well, then, I was sorry to cut you off. And then he said, I saw it happen again, and I couldn't remember who it had happened to on either occasion. But he said the next time, because I think it was through turns 2, 3, or that little right-left complex there after turn 1, and you went through the same thing. Not quite as bad, but you still went through it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those things. I mean, they're 630-pound motorcycles. They whenever they break loose, and they don't want to come back very easy. Luckily, I came out of turns 1 and 2, and the thing snapped and started going. But luckily, I was going into that right left, and I was kind of able to use the wiggle to my advantage. It just straightened back up, and we went through and everything. Heck, I think I ended up running wide the next turn, anyways. But yeah, it was those things. Whenever they break loose, they break loose, and you go for a ride. That's for sure.
Great stuff here. We have Hayden Gillim on the show. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll pick his brain a little bit more about riding one of those bagger bikes.
I don't know. It's hard to say. It depends on the bike. It depends on the weather, how I'm feeling that weekend. I might have an off weekend, and then if I have an off weekend, I don't like the track as much.
Welcome back to the Skinny. Having a good time here, and conversations that go on during the commercial break always seem to be the best ones. I hate it that they go down that way, but we try to reenact them here, and we're going to try to do it right now because Hayden was just telling us, James never got to enjoy the first go round with that bike, the Street Glide, I think it was. But you said now they have triple clamps on them. They're a lot stiffer, but initially when you got on them, give us an idea again of what that thing felt like.
Yeah, so now they've got the billet swing arms and triple clamps and subframes and everything. They're pretty rigid bikes for 630 pounds. And I was telling you guys, at the break, the first few races I rode one, it was all the bike was doing was just, I'd be coming out of corners, going down straightaways, and my head just be bobbling off to the sides, and those bikes never wanted to go straight, very smooth. But now they're real race bikes.
And bushings bouncing around and just loosey goosey.
Oh yeah. The best part about those bikes then were the rims, and that was just they had the rims and they had the good tires, and that was about it.
Hey, let's step back in time here just a little bit because you did enjoy some success going back to 2008 Red Bull U.S. Rookies Cup and podium to every race that you finished. I always thought it was interesting how that was written. You podiumed every race that you finished, clearly indicating that you didn't finish them all. So what happened? What came out of that?
Yeah, so obviously, going into it, I was 13, and the youngest you could be was 13 at the time, and I was actually the youngest person, either youngest or second youngest person in the series. And as a 13-year-old, you don't have very many fears, especially whenever it comes to motorcycles. So I was able to, I was a good size for the bikes. I was able to ride really good on them, and obviously, I had a couple crashes. I ended up second by like 8 points or something in the championship, and ended up the next year going over to Europe, racing in the Rookies Cup over there. I had a big growth spurt between the seasons, and didn't quite fit the bike as good over there, and still had a couple good showings, and then came back here and ran some flat track, ran a little bit of amateur road racing, and then slowly progressed into full-time pro racing here. And I haven't really looked back. I've had some good years here. Unfortunately, only able to put one into a championship, but I've got a lot of second, third places, and hopefully this year on the bagger and stock 1000 on the Superbike stuff, hopefully I can find one where I can get that number 1 plate.
So what's your favorite track to ride? I mean, what do you look forward to in a season that when it comes up on the schedule, you're like, yeah, this is where I want to ride?
Man, that's a tough one. It used to be Barber. Now they've had the repave a few years ago, and it's too smooth for me. Everybody's too good there now. I liked it whenever the track had some seams in it, and you had to ride the track a little bit more. The Ridge is an awesome track out in Washington. The Ridge is a freaking fun track. It's 100% commitment. Everything you go around there, you have to be committed. And there, I love Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's an awesome track. Honestly, I've never really cared for Daytona up until I guess this year, and now it grew on me a little bit. I like the draft and everything now, but I don't know. It's hard to say. It depends on the bike. It depends on the weather, how I'm feeling that weekend. I might have an off weekend, and then if I have an off weekend, I don't like the track as much. So I usually like the more like flowy tracks, not so much straightaways. Everything is more made up in the corners. So I like the fast flowy stuff. Unfortunately we don't go to any of those tracks with the baggers, but we'll make it work.
So when you're at a race weekend, do you ever run both on the same weekend, the 1,000 Superbike and the bagger?
Yes. So I think we have, so there's 6 more rounds of the baggers this year. And I believe 5, or well, all 6 of the ones of the bagger are the same weekend. So Superbike is every single weekend except for Daytona. And then, so I'll run Superbike. There's stock 1,000, which it only has 5 races. And they're all, Superbike's always a double header. Baggers is always a double header, and stock 1,000 is always a double header. And there's 4 weekends where I'll have all 3 going on. And that's going to be the fun weekends.
So talk to me, where I was leading with that is, how much differently do you ride, say, the 1,000 to the bagger bike? And does it take you a lap to kind of get back in the zone from one to the other?
It can. Luckily, I've rode a lot of different bikes, and I've bounced back and forth from a bunch of different bikes, and so I've figured out how to make things work. At Daytona, I realized, so going from the bagger to the 750 at Daytona that I was riding for the 200, the 750 was super easy to ride. Riding the bagger made that so easy. But then, even vice versa, just having that extra track time that I had with the other class for the baggers made it easier, because I knew exactly what the track was at, what was working good with the track, where the tires had little hiccups, and just having all the extra track time helps. And then it'll be interesting to see what the sewer bike and the stock bike are like versus the bagger. The 750s and the bagger actually had pretty dang identical brake points, shift points, everything. Wow. So really going back and forth between them wasn't that big a deal. Going from the sewer bike to the bagger is going to be different, because the brake points are going to be different. Shift points are going to be different. Everything's going to be a little bit different. And the way you ride the bagger is quite a bit different. The way you sit on it is not your normal, sit point on a race bike. And they're definitely quite a bit wider, quite a bit heavier. They just do things differently. They've got a bunch of weight in the rear, where most race bikes have it more so in the front, or it's more evenly displaced. The bagger, you don't ride over the front. Everything kind of goes through the rear. As long as you have the rear doing what it wants, then you can just make it work. It'll be interesting. I haven't rode the bikes back to back yet for the sewer bike and the bagger, so it'll be interesting whenever we get to Atlanta to see what really the differences are there.
Great insight from one of the best here with Hayden Gillim, one of the riders for the Vance and Hines team. We'll have more when we come back.
The sewer bikes, it's a small engine. The bagger engines are 170 pounds just in the engine. And I know that just because I had to help the guys change an engine back in 21. So, yeah, it's working on those baggers, it's a lot different.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since 04. And American Coach. American Coach, innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We have Hayden Gillim on the show here, one half of the Vance and Hines team that competes in the Moto America's King of the Baggers, also competes on the 750s, the 1000s, the super bikes, and we were just talking about the differences between some of the bikes. You mentioned before that these things have a ton of horsepower, so can you put into numbers what we're looking at, say like a 750 to the bagger bike to the super bike?
So I know the sewer bikes, I don't know exactly the numbers on everything, but I know the sewer bikes are pushing, anywhere from 210 to 230. I don't know what the really good sewer bikes are really pushing. And then the 750s are around 130, I think. 130, maybe with mid 130s. I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, I'm not a big numbers guy. But I know the baggers are like 180 on horsepower, and then like 150 on foot-pounds on the torque. Like they're pushing some serious numbers out of those baggers, that's for sure. And that much power with that much weight, and I mean whenever we get on the gas on these baggers, they're lighting up the rear tires. The Dunlops are getting put to the test every single time we get on the throttle.
Trying to push all that weight. So can you give us a perspective on that as well? You mentioned a couple times that the bagger bike weighs 600 pounds or in excess. What does a super bike weigh?
I think half, maybe 320, 330. Like it's very different. And, the baggers, a lot of the weight is down low in the bagger, and, the sewer bikes, it's a small engine. The bagger engines are 170 pounds just in the engine. And I know that just because I had to help the guys change an engine back in 21. So, yeah, it's working on those baggers. It's a lot different than anything else these mechanics get to work on at the races.
So as usual, I think weight transfer is always the key, right? Whenever you're under braking, you want to transfer that weight. Whenever you want to get drive off, you're going to transfer the weight towards the back. Is there a massive amount of weight transfer, or it's all relatively controlled? I know through springs and dampers, but do you feel the big weight transfer in comparison to a lighter bike?
No, actually, honestly, it's less so. The bikes are so heavy that in order to hold the bike up, you got to have heavy springs. And I know over on the front, I noticed under braking on the front dives really fast. But whenever we get on the gas, the only thing I notice is the front end will get lighter, but it doesn't seem like a ton of weight gets transferred to the back. Like I said earlier, it's a lot of the weight is down low and towards the back, so everything kind of goes through the back. So I think once you get the rear end kind of close, then it's just about little adjustments on the front end to try and get the bike to turn a little bit better, stop a little bit better. But heck, I mean, really, I hardly touched the thing. I hardly had them change much on the bike. Once I got all my control levers and everything in the right spot, we hardly really messed with the thing. I just needed seat time and track time and just try to get it figured out.
Excellent stuff, man. It's been great. It's been a real learning process. Rico and I both have had a blast talking to you and James. You're the first guys we've had on from this discipline of motorsports, and we just love motorsports in general. So to pick your brains and find out some of the intricacies of the sport and how you guys have to adapt and what you do, like Rico said before, I mean, there's nothing else like it. It's so cool to watch you guys do what you do. The level of talent that you guys have, the physicality of the racing that it takes to be good. To watch you do it on the dry is one thing. To watch you guys do it in the rain, there's no explaining. Man, we can't thank you enough for putting everything on the line and going out there and giving us something to watch like that. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, no, it's that's what we do, and that's the fun in it, and especially like hearing it from people that are new to it too. It's cool hearing what people think about it whenever they first get into it. So, I really appreciate you guys having me on and talking with me about it. And hopefully I was able to help a little bit, help you all understand a couple little things. I know y'all are around motorsports and around motorcycles and everything. Y'all are around everything, so y'all know what's going on. But yeah, it was cool, and thanks again for having me.
Great time for sure, man. Best of luck throughout the rest of the year. Hope you guys go out and kill it all year long and all of your different classes and disciplines. So thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. Hayden Gillim, that's a skinny on That Talented Rider. We'll see you next week.